Hi, welcome to Prime Recap. When their boat is attacked by a sea monster, three teenagers find themselves on a mysterious island and must join forces to survive in a place full of mythological creatures. Today we will recap the complete first season of the series, Skull Island, from 2023. On a ship in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, a young woman must escape from a group of men who are trying to capture her. Despite being handcuffed, Annie manages to free herself from the bad men but ends up being surrounded. As she is about to be arrested, she takes a lighter from her pocket and throws it into a pool of fuel. At that moment, the ship goes up in flames and the young woman manages to escape by jumping into a lifeboat that carries her away. A few miles away, during a storm, Cap and his son lead an expedition in search of mythical creatures. Hero is the owner of the ship and his son is one of the members of his crew. Mike and Charlie are best friends, despite their very different personalities and dreams. Boomer is one of the boat's employees, and is launching underwater charges to lure the monsters closer to the boat. In this way, their team can hunt them down. That night, while looking out over the ocean, Charlie spots a young girl in the water and jumps into the sea to rescue her. With the help of his friends, they return to the boat and Annie asks where her dog is. The young woman then faints and is taken to the control room. Minutes later, she wakes up frightened and is interrogating to find out if she can trust those people. Suddenly, the group spots a sign in the sky and everyone goes out to check if anyone is in need of help. Meanwhile, Charlie keeps the girl company, who despairs when she discovers that they throw bombs into the sea to attract monsters. Annie claims that this will draw the attention of the creature that attacked the boat she used to escape, and the young man rushes to break the news to his father. Just then, a small boat approaches and a man breaks into the ship looking for the young woman. Upon hearing the news about the existence of a monster, Cap gets excited and rushes to the control room, where he finds a man passed out. The invader was attacked by Annie, as he intended to take her back to the ship. Cap says he will do his best to protect the girl, but he needs to know everything that happened to her. As Annie tells her story, the intruder wakes up and threatens the group with a knife. Just then, another intruder appears and is about to attack Boomer when he is captured by a tentacle. A short time later, he finds the stranger lifeless on the boat and intends to go to warn the rest of the crew about the possible threat, but is also captured. Then the monster pulls the invader out to the sea, and Mike goes after it. Foreseeing what is coming, Annie says that they need to leave the boat and states that she will guide them to her island. However, before they could reach safety, the creature attacks the ship, and in trying to save his son, Hero is knocked out by one of the giant octopus tentacles. Soon after, all the crew members are attacked, and after freeing herself from the handcuffs, Annie jumps into the water with a harpoon. While trying to fight the monster, Mike is electrocuted and thrown into the water. Worried for his friend, Charlie jumps into the sea after him, and then the boat is destroyed. When Cap falls into the ocean, he gets caught in a net and watches his boat sink. He tries to reach the surface, but is stuck. The man was about to drown amidst the monster's tentacles when Annie appears to free him. Meanwhile, the two young men arrive at the beach and Mike is still in shock over the elimination of his father. Charlie tries to console him, but now they have something more important to worry about, since they have no idea where they are. Before starting that trip, Hero and his son bought a map in an antique store. The salesman said that this map would take them to an island full of monsters which, because it was so dangerous, became known as Skull Island. Before father and son left, the man warned them that if they went to that island, they would never come back, but this was not enough to scare them. Now Hero is eliminated and Mike has a severe chest wound. The two young men then plan to enter the island to send up a smoke signal, but are attacked while still on the beach. Suddenly, a giant crab that was hiding in the sand reveals itself and attacks Charlie. Luckily, the young man manages to escape, but Mike is captured and dragged in the sand. With the help of his friend, he manages to free himself and they both run to the interior of the island, but soon discover that there are several of those monsters on the beach and they must climb up a rock to avoid being devoured. A few miles away is the captain. He is lying on top of a rock and decides to climb down to explore this unknown place. While searching for his son, the man realizes that he is being followed by a rock and soon a mutated insect reveals itself. The creature has a belly coated in precious stones and is walking toward the pilot when a sniper appears and attacks the monster. However, it is soon eliminated by him. Cap is terrified by the attack he has just witnessed and soon discovers that there are more people on that island. Upon seeing him, Irene runs away and the man goes after her. When she realizes that this guy does not intend to hurt her, the woman decides to join him to find her camp. On the way, they spot a slime plantation, but soon discover that the thing is a giant tortoise. When he arrives at the camp, Cap asks for Irene's help in finding his son and states that he will help the woman find Annie, because he has already realized that she is looking for the girl. In an attempt to distract the crabs, Charlie throws a rock into the sand and discovers that it is actually a small monster. As the creature tries to escape from the crustaceans, the two youngsters sneak up to the trees, but are soon detected and Charlie is about to be eliminated when Annie appears. The girl throws a spear at the creature and then uses the tip of the harpoon to fight those monsters. Meanwhile, the two youngsters take the opportunity to escape. When Charlie is cornered, Mike grabs the crab and uses the harpoon to eliminate him. Suddenly, a terrifying roar spreads across the island and all the crustaceans hide again, giving the youngsters the opportunity to escape. Terrified, Charlie asks what it was that made that noise and Annie says she doesn't know, because she doesn't know that island. The truth is that the young woman lived on another island that is 30 kilometers away from where they are. Upon hearing this, Charlie becomes even more curious to find out what that place is and Mike states that they are on Skull Island. At this point, the young man despairs, because he feels guilty for everything that happened to his crew, since he and his father were the only ones who knew that the boat was sailing to that island. As Charlie tries to calm him down, two guys with guns show up and the young man realizes that Annie has gone into hiding. The men begin to question them and inform them that they are after Annie, but the pair claim that they have not seen any girls on that island. At that moment, the young woman appears and strikes the soldiers. However, just as she is about to be captured, a gigantic dog appears and eliminates those guys. Annie is then attacked. Frightened, the two friends decide to flee, and while trying to escape, they spot the soldier being devoured by a mutant crocodile. After devouring that man, the monster goes after the young men and they are forced to jump into the water to escape. The creature then chases them through the forest and the two friends follow the current until they fall into a waterfall. Still, the crocodile does not give up going after them and jumps into the water. Just as it was about to devour them, Kong appears and captures the animal, which becomes an appetizer for the giant gorilla. After devouring it, the ape leaves and the young men get out of the water. Then Annie and her dog appear, and Charlie realizes that she has not been attacked. So the group enters the island in search of Cap so that they can get the hell out of that bizarre place. Meanwhile, the man accompanies Irene and her team on a relentless search for the girl. When they come out of the underbrush, the gang is chased by a giant bird and one of the men is captured. After fixing the tracker, they manage to call for rescue, and a few hours later, a helicopter arrives on the scene. However, before the aircraft can land on the island, the octopus appears and uses its tentacles to destroy it. Immediately, Irene begins to think of another plan to get out of that place and orders her team to contact some boat while she and Cap find a way to lure the girl. Just then, Annie and Charlie are looking for something to eat and Mike realizes that his injury is getting worse and worse. After climbing a tree and hiding, the dog waits for the moment when a bird approaches the young men and attacks it. Then the pair realize that it has been used as bait to lure the breakfast. After feeding, the group walks through the forest and, while discussing a way to escape from that island, Charlie is captured. Only a few minutes later, Annie and Mike notice his absence and return to look for their friend, who has been taken to a spider's lair. When he finds Charlie, Mike decides to go down there to save him and they both see the spider skeleton being dragged into the shadows. Just then, Annie appears in the burrow next to them and the trio is surprised by the arrival of a spider. Then Annie lies down on the ground right in front of the creature and starts screaming for help. It doesn't take long before the dog shows up and starts chasing the arachnid, which immediately flees. While setting the trap to lure Annie, Irene and her team end up in a giant flower garden and the woman ends up being devoured by a carnivorous plant. Quickly, Sam destroys the stem to finish off the flower, and then Cap helps him remove Irene from inside the plant. Now that they are safe in the forest, Annie and her friends continue on their way until the dog hears the soldiers approaching and runs towards them. Those armed men arrived on their island and attacked them for no apparent reason, so the pair intend to take revenge. Afraid of getting lost in the forest, Mike and Charlie go after them and hide in the bushes so as not to be seen by the mercenaries. Suddenly, Annie and her dog show up and attack those men, but the pair end up being surrounded. While searching for the woman who is trying to capture her, the girl is shot in the neck by a tranquilizer dart. Upon seeing his best friend unconscious, the dog arouses his fury and runs toward Irene. However, before it can attack her, the animal is captured by the hawk. Still hiding in the bushes, Mike spots Cap and discovers that he is helping that group. Irene then orders her team to do a sweep to see if the young men were with Annie, and Mike decides to turn himself in. Since he is weak and injured, he knows that the best option is to let himself be captured so that Charlie can escape and then return to save them. After informing the captain that his son is fine, Mike returns to camp with that group and Charlie is attacked by a masked person who chases him until the young man comes out of hiding. At this point, the young man is captured by the bird and taken to the top of a ruined building. Once there, he finds Annie's dog and tries to join the creature so that they can both get out alive. With the promise that he will help rescue Annie, Charlie manages to convince the beast to use his claws to climb down the tower. However, the pair is surprised by the arrival of the giant gorilla and the dog ends up slipping, but manages to stop before hitting the ground. Then Charlie gets a chance to take a closer look at Kong and realizes that he is extremely sad when he looks at a necklace. The young man wonders why he is so sad, but soon ignores him and goes after the dog. Meanwhile, back at the camp, the group is surprised to see a whale flying over the island. The mammal then lands next to Kong's palace, and the ape takes this as an affront. It is already getting dark when Mike begins to lose his strength due to the wound in his chest and faints. When she wakes up, Annie soon receives a visit from Irene and both try to make peace so they can help Mike recover. At that moment, Charlie is walking in the forest next to his dog, who is sniffing out his friend's trail in an attempt to find her. During a conversation, Irene asks what happened to Annie, and the girl remembers that 10 years ago, when she was just a child, she was trapped on an island with her father. The man was forced to leave her alone in a hiding place to face the beast that was trying to devour them both. Hours later, Annie needed to bury him, as her father and the beast ended up perishing that day. When this happened, the young woman thought she was alone on the island, but soon discovered that the giant dog also had a puppy. That night, the girl was trying to open a package of sausages when the little monster broke into her hiding place and stole her food. However, instead of devouring the food, the animal decided to share it, and after that day the pair was never separated again. In an attempt to slow the spread of the poison, Irene takes a plant she found in the forest and makes a remedy for Mike's wound. She then invites Annie to go and talk outside the tent and decides to tell her the whole truth. The woman then reveals that the girl is her daughter. For all these years, Irene believed her to be eliminated until a fishing boat saw Annie on an island and sent out an alert. Minutes later, the boat disappeared, so Irene used all her resources to hire a team to go after Annie. When she approached the girl, her group was attacked by the dog, and at that moment a strong enmity was created. A few meters away from the camp are Charlie and his dog. The young man plans to set fire to a tree to get the soldiers' attention and thus get a break to save Annie and the others. However, when he goes to put the first stage of his plan into action, numerous frightening creatures reveal themselves and begin to attack them. At that moment, the pair fights those creatures and Annie runs towards her best friend. Halfway through, the young girl is attacked, but the dog appears and eliminates the creature that is trying to hurt her. Minutes later, Charlie and his father meet and Irene is attacked by the beast. The woman orders her security guards not to shoot and, at Annie's request, asks for forgiveness for the harm she has caused the dog. After this, the animal is able to forgive her and leaves her alone. Charlie is with his father in Mike's tent when one of the soldiers in the camp is attacked by the giant octopus and dragged into the ocean. So the young man has the idea to use Kong to eliminate that sea monster. A few years ago, the gorilla saved a young girl who was being chased by a giant lizard in the forest and they both became great friends. The girl belonged to a village of natives living on Skull Island, and besides being a friend of Kong, she also had great affection for the falcon. One day, the three friends find an animal with its body in pieces in the jungle and decide to investigate what caused its elimination. It is not long before they encounter a group of bloodthirsty chameleons and the ape decides to act, despite his friend's warning that this was a very bad idea. After throwing a giant rock at the tail of one of the monsters, Kong starts a battle against those beasts and gets desperate when he sees one of them going after the girl. To defend herself, the redhead pierces the chameleon's tongue with her spear, but ends up taking a blow from its tail and is thrown off the cliff. Immediately, Kong jumps to catch the girl before she hits the ground, but is unable to reach her. If it weren't for the hawk, his friend would be eliminated. However, now that she is safe, the ape returns to the battle and attacks the chameleon with all his might. At that moment, another enemy clings to the bird's feet and tries to knock her down. When the animal manages to get rid of its opponent in the air, the girl is also dragged down, and even though her body is punctured after falling into a pointed skeleton, the monster tries to devour her. Meanwhile, Kong is trying to get rid of his last opponent and throws him against a large stone wall. Just then, several cracks begin to propagate and rocks fall everywhere. But instead of running away, the gorilla runs to save his friend and manages to catch her before she is hit. When the trio is safe, the red-haired girl is furious and blames Kong for the fact that they almost perished, because it all happened thanks to his useless plan. Furious, the girl leaves and the two friends are separated. That night, the ape goes to bathe in the ocean to clean his wound, and the smell of his blood awakens a sleeping sea monster. The king of Skull Island spends the entire night watching his friend's village, and the next morning tries to win back her friendship, but the girl orders him to leave. That same day, while fishing, some boats suddenly begin to disappear, and when she sees the octopus approaching, the young woman screams in despair. Although he is sleeping, Kong can hear her and runs to the beach to rescue the girl. On the way, he spots several lifeless humans and is shocked to find his friend seriously injured. The ape is tempted to enter the water to take revenge on the monster, but decides to take the young girl's body and carry it to safety. While still alive, the redhead asks the gorilla for forgiveness and ends up dying soon after. Then, the next morning, Kong makes a grave to bury her and keeps her necklace as a souvenir. From that day on, the ape began to harbor a great anger toward that octopus and all his joy was taken away. Charlie's plan is to use this necklace to lure Kong into the ocean. In this way, the two titans will have the opportunity to face each other in battle and the octopus can be destroyed. The young man suspects that the sea monster throws whales at the gorilla to try to lure it into the water, so it will probably appear when Kong enters the sea. Immediately, Annie agrees to help Charlie put his plan into practice and the whole team starts mobilizing to leave the island soon. Concerned for her daughter's safety, Irene tries to convince her not to go after the young man, but the young girl feels extremely excited for this adventure and ignores her once again. A few minutes later, the trio arrive at Kong's throne and are soon surprised by the animal's presence. After stealing the necklace, they are pursued and the dog is knocked down while crossing a bridge. Luckily, he manages to dig his claws into the tower and, after climbing, continues his escape. In order to lighten the load so that the beast can run faster, Charlie decides to stay behind and promises that he will meet Annie on the beach. From afar, Irene and her team observe the chase. When he realizes that his son is not with the girl and her dog, Cap decides to run into the forest to look for him. Annie is about to reach the sea when the gorilla manages to surround them. The young girl then throws the necklace on the sand, and as he bends down to pick it up, Kong is attacked by the sea monster. While being dragged into the ocean, he tries to break free, but discovers that his opponent is bigger and stronger than he could ever imagine. The creature then grabs the ape's neck and throws him away. At this point, in the middle of the forest, Cap is attacked by a centipede, but Mike manages to help him get rid of the giant insect. Then the young man faints and Cap has to carry him. While trying to catch his breath, Kong continues to be attacked and Annie must help her dog who is almost drowning. Charlie is running through the forest towards the beach when he gets caught in a trap and again spots the masked human. This time, however, he has company, and a female voice states that the young man will suffer for what he has done to Kong. By now, the ape has been dragged to the bottom of the ocean, as the octopus is trying to drown him. However, the ape manages to break free by using a boat to attack his opponent and swims back to the surface after landing several blows on his enemy. After the battle, the gorilla is weak and has a wound on his neck. At that moment, he sees the dog trying to swim to Annie and decides to save him from drowning, because this scene reminds him of the relationship he had with his human. Now that they are safe on the beach, the two friends hug and the girl apologizes for luring Kong into a battle. Suddenly, the mutant octopus appears and is enraged. The creature again drags the gorilla into the water, but this time Kong pulls his enemy in and, after hurling him onto the rock, lands several punches to his head. After achieving his victory, the ape reasserts himself as the king of that island and lets out a great roar while beating his chest. At this point, Kong is taken by surprise, as the monster attacks his right eye with a tentacle. Then, to make sure that his opponent is eliminated, the gorilla decides to break his body in half and throw it into the sea. The impact causes a strong wave to be caused and the two friends try to escape, but end up being caught in the water. Inevitably, the pair split up and Annie is knocked unconscious after hitting her head on a rock. 2 weeks later, she wakes up and finds herself with Irene. The girl is in a hospital room and feels confused, but when she opens the curtains she discovers that she has been taken back to the mainland. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, please like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.